Welcome, everyone, to the eagerly awaited start of Porsche Cup Season 5, brought to you live on RCI TV. We're thrilled to be back on Mondays for an action-packed season opener here at the iconic Circuit Paul Ricard, known for its long straights, technical turns, and distinctive blue and red runoff areas. This circuit will push our drivers to the top of their skill set. Nestled in the French Riviera, Paul Ricard is the perfect backdrop to showcase both driver skill and vehicle setup, with its 5.8-kilometer layout combining high-speed straights with challenging corners, especially down the Mistral Straight and into the famous Cygnus Corner. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator for tonight's action. Alongside me, the wonderful Jesse Lee, and ensuring every angle is covered, we have Stewie behind the cameras, and of course, not forgetting all of our live stewards for tonight, casting their eye over all of the 40-something drivers we currently have in the server.
Right you are, John. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Season 5 of the RCI Porsche Cup, and it's as popular as ever. Some 40-plus signups here today. Last I checked, we had 38 cars out there in the paddock area, now taking to the track for qualifying for the all-important opening round. And this 15-minute qualifying session is going to tell us a lot very early on about who our players are. Been in the garage area myself, John, talking to some of the drivers, talking to some of the teams about who they thought going to be the top runners. Everybody casting their eye on the current reigning night owl champion, Raphael Huell, looking to do it to him again here in Porsche Cup on Monday.
Yeah, not only, of course, reigning night owl champion, not forgetting M2 Cup just a few weeks ago, of course, rounding out the title there as well. It's going to be a hat trick for Raphael Huell if he makes it across this championship on this season. And number 21 driver looking very competitive already in the practice and qualifying sessions. Lots of familiar names on the board that we're going to be recognizing, and this man here, Les Stevenson, the first to take to tonight's track for his inaugural qualifying lap, going to be setting the benchmark when he eventually completes the outlap and on to, of course, the flying lap. 23 degrees in the air, 31 degrees down on the track, Jesse, meaning these tyres should come up to temperature relatively quickly compared to some of the other circuits we might visit.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting racetrack, and it will bear no resemblance to any other track that we're going to. A fantastic group of cars and tracks that will certainly complement each other in some cases, and it'll test the drivers in a lot of others. Coming to get the start-finish line and set the first time on the board, or will it do that? I didn't see it pop up there. That might have been an actual outlap, and in fact it probably was. So the very first lap of the race. Take us away, John. Walk us through Paul Ricard.
Paul Ricard, as we mentioned earlier on, a very technical circuit, hard braking for the first two turns. Be careful on the exit. Track limits is going to be a topic that's conversed about quite a lot with us here tonight. Of course, no real kind of grass and gravel to distract you from running wide, only the white line, and of course extra momentum that you might gain. Les there already wrestling the car over the curbs as he comes through the slow sections of 3, 4 and 5 before opening it out onto the long Mistral Straight, as we talked about earlier. Turn 7, crucial to get a good run out of here, because if you don't, it's a very long time before you get to the next braking zone, and a little bit of traffic ahead. I'm sure Les won't be all too disturbed by that, providing nobody starts backing up in the final sector. Reaching speeds 280 kilometers plus, again depending on car setup, slipstreams, fuel loads and all that jazz. A quick dab of the brakes, down a gear, look for the whiteboard on the inside. Be careful, whiteboards on the outside signify the track limits. And then this is turn 11. It's the long, kind of never-ending double apex. Feels like it drags on forever. Really hard to get that car pitched in to the apex, and then opening it back out for turn 12. Again, a bit of a misleading corner. You can carry lots more speed through here than you realize as it tightens up towards the latter half of the bend. And then, of course, the final run down into the little twisty section at the end of the lap. Another corner here that feels like it goes on forever. It's crucial to keep the car pinched to the left so you can open up the final turn and slingshot yourself across the inside curb. Be very careful. Need to upset these Porsche Cup cars. Les with a clean exit towards the line. He goes for the first lap, being at 1:57 flat, immediately bested by Nicholas Nordquist, chasing behind in the number 1:37, another driver that we're quite familiar with here at RCI. But Jordan Daly back again. Jesse missed out on the M2s, but back for the Porsche Cup, and this is going to be another one of those drivers to keep your eye on throughout the season.
Yeah, it sure will be. Jordan Daly put up an excellent fight in the Night Out Championship, and that was sort of his return to form, return to racing. Won a couple of those rounds as well. He's here. I didn't see him on the entry list, but that's probably because I'm blind and an old man. I didn't think he was going to be here for Porsche Cup Season 5, but here he is in the Just Gamers 197, and he will look to do some damage here at the top end, the pointy end of the field, and he already is P3. Christian Lindgren, the quickest of everyone thus far. And here is Connection Lost Racing's Martin Lawrence in the 404. You know, this is a driver that is always a wild card. He showed some serious speed and some fortitude in that M2 Cup, returning back here on a Monday. I gotta say, Monday Champ has turned into something absolutely incredible. It's RCI's most populous series, and we got 41 cars, John, out there on the track. Thank goodness it's Paul Ricard, and it is as big as it is. But folks, look to the right middle side of your screen. That's the track map. Every dot is a car. A blue dot means they're not on a valid lap. A gray dot means they are on a valid lap, and the red dot, of course, is the car that we're looking at. If you see yellow, that, of course, is a car that is in some sort of peril out there on the circuit. Everybody looking to get some lap times in. This man, Raphael Huell, the suspicious Cats 21. I have no idea. Actually, I do know exactly why it is called that. There's nothing suspicious. Those are adorable cats on the side of that car. Everyone talking about Raphael Huell. You're talking about Raphael Huell. He's on a roll. Give me one good reason, John, why he can't win this one too.
I wouldn't say, I think he is a very strong contender for today's race, and certainly some suspicious cats on that car. Casting my eye over it earlier. Some of them look a little bit shifty, Jesse. They're definitely up to something. And Raphael Huell, of course, up to his first qualifying lap. So we'll see what the German driver can do. Meanwhile, Miguel Nito coming across the line. He's been looking quite strong in practice so far as well. And to the top of the board he goes. First row of the grid alongside Christian Lindgren with a 155.877. It's looking very competitive towards the top, as is always the case with these one-make series, Jesse. It really does, narrow those margins down. We talk so much in GT racing, endurance racing about, balance of performance, BOP, but when you throw everybody in a similar car, the Porsche Cup, very limited in terms of setup changes that you can make. Again, draws the gap even closer down. So it all comes down to that raw driver skill and kind of pure talent, which is why I love when Tim Ireland decides to host a Monday kind of one-make series. It's always a fun time as we see a driver exiting there to stage left. Quick reminder, nobody here has traction control, and I think that was Lopez in the number 11 trying to set his inaugural qualifying lap. But no traction control, limited setups, everybody in the same car makes for some fantastic racing. And when you throw everybody at Paul Ricard in the numbers we've got today, it's going to be an absolute blast of round one as Raphael Huell straight to the top of the board with a 155.502, setting the benchmark very high, quite kind of in the middle point of the session. So everybody's going to have to kind of wake up and really get their skates on. And Martin Lawrence doing just that with a 155.497. Lawrence immediately sticking it to Huell. Christian Lindgren, Nito and Leffe. Jordan Daly still yet to find about half a second or so to get towards the front. But that is a very quick time from both Lawrence and Huell there.
Well, I was going to say that don't worry about the gaps between the times. To John's point, they're going to very much condense as this qualifying session continues, as cars are exiting left, right, and center, and that was pretty nasty into the tire pack, but no harm, no foul for Nito as they go back. P3 does Miguel. That will further bolster my point of the times are going to get closer. They can't get very much closer between the top two, but the rest certainly will shorten up as they gain confidence in the car, in the tires. As talking to drivers, they didn't really complain about anything handling wise with the cars. So used to the old 911 Cup car that was a barrel of monkeys, so to speak, as far as what you would get handling wise. Not really the case on this car. No traction control, not really a big problem. Throw some wet weather in there. Maybe we'll see some of that later on in the season. That could be a little bit of a monkey wrench. But today, nothing doing. Absolutely gorgeous weather here in France as good as you could ever like, and these times are going to continue to condense and gotten to the halfway point, a little bit past that in the qualifying session. Many cars clamoring into the pit lane to make those adjustments and get back out there and set another couple of laps. One other thing, John, that we deal with here, as you well know, we've done this before, you usually get a lot of invalidations here. Not the case today. Everyone's setting valid laps. That typically tells me the car's responding. It's giving them sort of what they need to get the lap times done, and they're not having to stretch the track limits nearly as much. A lot of confidence out there behind the steering wheel.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? And confidence is the main thing with, any kind of driver, whether it, be go-karts or Formula One, GT racing, it's all about instilling that confidence in the driver. If they know they have a good machine underneath them, it makes the lap a hell of a lot easier, especially with things like consistency. Of course, over a 1 hour sprint race, it's all about being very consistent, as Andy Boardman fires himself just inside the top 10 at 156.402. Another valid lap, as you mentioned earlier on, Jesse. Straight back to the pit lane, up on the jacks. That's going to be a fresh set of tires and a very skinny fuel load with 4.5 minutes left. That's going to be, what, 1 out lap, 1 flying lap, potentially for Andy Boardman there. So, again, going to be running very skinny on fuel, maybe overinflate the tires to bring them into that window a little bit sooner than expected. Mike Redford down just outside the top 20, and normally a driver we see kind of in the high teens, but again, lots of kind of regular faces coming back to RCI. The grid much bigger than what we had at M2 Cup, and see Mike Redford there really wrestling the car and not happy with that lap, pulling off immediately back to the pit lane. He will go for some more setup tweaks and seeing what he can do to try and name another RCI accolade onto his roof if possible. Aaron Jackson up ahead of Mike Redford. He goes with a 156.967. Just under 4 minutes to go, Jesse. And as you pointed out earlier, that track map is looking very condensed indeed at the moment.
Yeah, normally, Paul Ricard, it's not really a racetrack where that's a big issue. You don't really think about that a whole lot, but you definitely do with this many cars. It doesn't matter if they're Porsche Cup cars or prototypes or GT cars, F1 cars for that matter. That would be an absolute sight to see. But the point is that there's so much traffic. It's almost like the Nürburgring Nordschleife race with 200 cars back in the day. It's just so condensed, so dense as far as cars are concerned, that it's imperative to find a little bit of open real estate. Nobody mentioned earlier about drafting other cars, with the exception of hitting the rev limiter and bouncing off the very end, the top end of the rev range. Now, these cars will tell you to shift up. You can see very clearly there, it says it's in 6th gear. It's about to go to the blue flashing lights, and it will do. There it is. That's usually tells you to shift up. There's only 6 gears in these cars, but you'll notice that the speed is still climbing a little bit. There's a little past the optimum shift range where you have a little bit more top end. These cars will absolutely go to the maximum speed in the draft. I've not seen a whole ton of people trying to line that up in draft here thus far, but I'm not saying it isn't happening. It's just that it's not blatantly obvious. Martin Lawrence did improve by the tune of 1.5 tenths to a 55.347, and that is currently the mark to beat. Raphael Huell sets opposite pole with Nito and Leffe, the top 4 cars. Lindgren, Martins, Badowski, Daly, Nordquist, that's Nicholas Nordquist, and Tom Shipston, your current top 10, all within a second. And I don't think we're done just yet. I think that we're going to have more cars within a second. I think we're going to have more competition throughout this entire field as these times continue to slim down.
Yeah, we're certainly going to see some late improvements, aren't we, as drivers again find that confidence and find that true limit of where they can really push. They might have been over pushing for the past few laps, and we see here the slipstream already coming into play. That's Grim Lilith in the number 115, and not too sure who was in the other car with him. Possibly, I want to say Martins might be in that livery earlier on as I was spectating from the sidelines. But Grim, fastest hands in the West, as you can see the small tweaks on the steering wheel. Grim, in fact, a controller player with us here at RCI and managing to get themselves inside the top 20. Quite the achievement.
John, that's not Grim Lilith, that's the Lift King. That's very clear from the top of the show for this. That is the.
Is that what we're going to refer to Grim as for the foreseeable now?
What I refer to him in real life. That's the Lift King. Here he is, the 115 coming to the line. He's been wrestling with the car. just a little bit. He's going to get another lap here if he has enough fuel, but this could be an improvement. Oh, and it's a big one up inside the top 10 for the Lift King. It's a 56.265.
Can't help but feel the Lift King some kind of alter ego from the Cars universe that races alongside Lightning McQueen at the moment. But Andy Borman coming through the final section. He's seeking an improvement just outside that top 10 region. We're quite used to seeing Andy Borman more towards the front of the grid, but the Greased Weasel Racing driver certainly struggling with the 992 in its current form. Hopping his way over the exit curb towards the line, he will go, and it's a good improvement up into P9, just ahead of Grim Lilith there. So still late improvements to come, as you say. He made the line with enough time to spare, and I think Miguel Nieto will be the first driver, along with Sebastian Brunier possibly ahead, to take the checkered flag. Rob Franken also taking the checkered flag as well, and it's a small improvement from the Portuguese driver, but not enough to pass Huel for that front row of the grid. So they will lock in to third. Leffe in the pit lane, Lindgren also in the pit lane. So Miguel Martin's really the only driver out there in the top kind of 5 region that can challenge for the top end of the grid. Gregor Forst, P20 currently for Fisher Esports, the number 337. Again, a new face that we see here at RCI, and it's a good improvement there. Up into P12. Reese Wilkinson comes through behind P21. Kevin Boss, a late improvement from P34 to 33. I think if my eyes were not mistaking me there. And Ross Cusick in the number 2. He will come through the final sector. One of the final cars, I think, on a valid lap currently, seeking an improvement certainly down the bottom end of the grid. And of course, the qualifying position, Jesse, not always crucial in these big grid races. Sure, it puts you ahead of some chaos that may happen at the start of the race, but again, other people's demise can be your gain. So all about keeping it clean on these opening laps as the number 2 comes towards the line. Will they improve? They won't. Immediately braking before the line. Ibiza Racer backwards in the wall somewhere at the top end of the circuit. And Callum Kerrigan and Andy Boardman, the last 2 cars, still circulating at the moment for an improvement. Kerrigan, I assume no improvement for him coming through, currently P19, and he stays P19 there. And Andy Boardman practicing the pit-in sequence, which is always crucial, Jesse. We don't often see a lot of drivers do it, but of course a mandatory pit stop on the cards today, meaning what Andy Boardman has just done, being quite crucial there.
Yeah, I think it's important to practice that sort of thing. And speaking of practice, here is the results of all the practice they put into today. Martin Lawrence on pole for round 1 of the Porsche Cup Season 5, has the quickest second and third sector of all, was a half tenths clear of the field. Raphael Huel sits opposite pole. Nito, Leffe, the next row. Badowski, Lindgren, Martins, Daly, Boardman, Lilith, or Lift King if you prefer, the top 10. Nicholas Nordquist, Forrest, Shipston, Edwards, Roscom, LaRue, Franken, Kierton, Kerrigan, Plata is your top 20. Reese Wilkinson, Les Stevenson, Purchase, Brunier, Svinchek, Jackson, Redford, Varga, Carlson, Boulder, the top 30. Hauser, Lundquist, Boss, Byron, Racer, Foster, Lundquist, that's the other one, of course. Kusick, Novak, Lopez, Teixeira, 41 cars. Lopez and Teixeira starting at the back of the grid. And this is normally the time of the broadcast where we show you the championship standings, but as it is the first round of the championship, there isn't any, so we won't, so we can't. So instead, we're going to talk a little bit about what we saw in qualifying. The pack getting very close. We both touched on it, John, of just how close this was going to be. Now that they've qualified, and they've qualified quite closely indeed, how do you make space out there, John? How do you get away from somebody else, especially if you're in this top 10 that's so tightly packed, or especially in the middle where you're going to be racing each other for everything, not just going forward, but to keep yourself from going backwards? How do you facilitate that in a huge field here today and avoid major calamity? None of those cats are suspicious. Those are cute cats. Those are adorable cats. Nothing suspicious about them. I will not have good name of cats besmirched on this program. But John, my previous question, how do you avoid the calamity here with such a big grid?
It's going to be a hard one, isn't it, today? Of course, the pinch point of turn 1 and 2, heavy braking zone as everybody funnels into the tight left kind of right sequence. You know, plenty of runoff room to take avoiding action, but again, something you don't want to be picking up early on is, one of those track limits warnings. Pick up too many of them, and you'll be coming down the pit lane for an added length of time on the race. It's all going to be about working together. I think today is going to be the crucial thing. It's that sequence we talk about a lot in endurance racing. Choose your fights. It's a very crucial thing to do here. You start squabbling with your opponent. Of course, we see it all the time in these one make series. It draws in the next kind of pack behind you. Once you got that involved, it can become a 4, 5, 6 car train in the blink of an eye. If you guys can, work together, might even see some bump drafting here. I wouldn't kind of put it out of the question for some of these guys that are, seasoned veterans in RCI and race together quite a lot in and around the communities. They do know how each other drive quite well. So bump drafting, I wouldn't say is going to be a thing we won't see today. I'm certainly sure we will see some kind of, working together down the Mistral Straight, whether it be people not really defending the position too much, letting the other car go through. Remember, we've got quite a few entries from the Sim Brothers camp. We've got Les Stevenson and Callum Kerrigan, quite famously, normally racing in equal liveries. Again, very similar liveries for both cars today. So could see them trying to edge themselves together. Purchase, I believe, is a friend of Kerrigan. Again, something to bear in mind. And then a lot of drivers, as I touched on earlier on, know each other and kind of, might be friends in and amongst the community, so may want to work together with each other. But I think that's going to be the crucial thing today, Jesse, is avoid those kind of unnecessary fights that aren't really going to gain you a lot. Remember, everybody today is fighting for one class. Don't have the pro silver am split that we usually have in these championships.
Whoa,
either.
Look at that.
So everybody lumped in together, and Monday Gang is a phrase that has kind of been coined, hasn't it, from the Ginetta championship, I believe, was when we first saw the Monday Gang kind of form. And that's exactly what we're kind of about here on Mondays at RCI. It's a very kind of social aspect. It's a very kind of community-based aspect as well. And quite a few drivers currently in a voice call with each other. So again, watch out for these guys working together. Hauser, Miguel Martins, Raphael Hughes in there, Aaron Jackson, Kevin Boss, Rob Franken, and also Sumi McFlood, aka Chesty LaRue, in the number 84. So again, be wary of those guys communicating with each other, working together, and that is going to be a long-winded answer to your question, Jesse, but choose your fights today. That's all I say to these drivers.
Well, we read chat here at RCI. We always tend to do, and we get a kick out of it up here in the booth. And when we have this moment before the lights go out and they set upon their exciting lap, just reading some of Joe Dahlberg in qualifying said that nice livery by the Roker Poker and no sign of his face, which is a bonus. I don't agree with that. I love Les Stevenson's face, red face or not. A whopping 41 racers, says Dan Van Zutphen, who will join me later on in the week. Miguel Martins with the toe of the century, says the Lift King. So that's confirming John's point earlier that there was a toe down the Mistral Straight that helped the Lift King get that lap. Join, but conflicts in calendar. Sitting on the sidelines here, a longtime racer here at RCI, going to enjoy it with the best seat, with the second best seat, in the house here, RCI TV. Glad to have you with us anyway. Carlos Claudia says, good luck, have fun. Hope I can join in a couple of weeks. Will be most welcome to. Despite being 41 drivers, you're always welcome to add more. Well, we'll see just how the race gets underway. And I guess what I'm actually asking, John, is you want to start at the front? You want to be in the middle? Or do you want to be at the very back of a field this competitive and this large?
I would say the front is probably your safest bet. The middle is probably going to be the most risky. And at the back, you're going to have a lot of kind of foresight into what's going on ahead of you and what's happening. So I would say every kind of start position has its advantages, but again, equally disadvantages, as riding on board with Martin Lawrence, looking down the Mistral Straight from his rear wing. 41 cars are snaking their way down the straight, all trying to build up crucial tire temperature. Of course, no tire blankets in the 992 Cup car. So again, first kind of couple of laps might be a little bit hairy for some of these drivers that haven't quite worked their tires up to temperature. We see lots of braking, lots of weaving, everybody trying to get, every single degree into the Pirelli car, because today normally we just see a lot of brake dragging and not too much weaving, but everybody certainly trying to exercise.
Doing a little bit of both here.
Yeah, everything they can to really get everything out of these Pirelli tires to get them up to temperature. Just look into the background there. 41 cars span the Mr. Straight. This is going to be some chaos when we get underway. And speaking of chaos on the RCI calendar, Jesse, you touched on it earlier on. Of course, the Dan Van Zoofen coming back to RCI TV with yourself, and that's going to be for Wednesday's RCI Championship as we go iRacing for MX5 Cup. That kicks off Wednesday evening, and we're starting at Circuit de Navarra, a track that promises plenty of close quarters racing and exciting battles. And the MX5 is known for its agility and competitive racing, making this the perfect series for drivers at all skill levels. Whether you're a seasoned racer or new to the grid, this championship offers a fantastic opportunity to sharpen your racecraft and join a passionate community of racers. And a good point to note on this one as well, all the content bar round 3, which is at Daytona, is completely free within the standard iRacing subscription. So don't miss out. Sign up and be part of the action from round 1 starting this Wednesday. Of course, you can head on over to the website racerci.com and check out all of our offerings anytime, day or night, and pre-qualify if required, such as Carlos Calatayud will be doing in 2 weeks' time, when we hopefully see him on the grid on the Porsche Cup Season 5. But for now, it is time to get underway as drivers begin to speed up towards the line, forming the double file we're so used to seeing in GT racing. Martin Lawrence to the right, Raphael Huell looking to make it a hat-trick of titles within RCI this year as we get green and underway. Lawrence already with a good jump from the start of the front row of the grid, covers off Raphael Huell towards the outside, trying to funnel Huell away from that inside line from making a dive onto the apex. And just look at this form of train, Jesse. We're 2 wide at the front, 3-4 wide in the mid-pack towards the back. And I think everybody has just about made it through the first pinch point of the lap. 1 car off to drivers right there, but this becomes the big checkup now as we head 3 wide at the front end of the grid into the slower section. They will go again, a typical pinch point as everybody brakes and checks up, and that one driver at the back doesn't quite check up enough, and that's when all the chaos kicks off. But everybody funneling out now onto the Mistral straight. There's a collision in the long right-hander. Driver off to stage right. I think that could be Olivier Curtin in one of the 992s in the mid-pack there. Possibly one of the RPMS cars involved in the chaos as well, but no harm, no foul. Everybody gets back underway, and towards the front, we're already seeing the slipstream battles that we spoke about. Leffe on Huell as they head up towards Cygnus. I think Huell is going to be maybe quite sensible given the inside. Leffe there swooping up the inside, and Nito in the background will capitalise on some ground gained, and Huell could find himself under fire from the Portuguese driver if he's not careful. Running wide, there is contact. Nito towards the inside. Huell survives towards the high side. Around the outside he will go. Nito rejoins just ahead, and one of the Sim Brothers entries, Christian Lindgren, I think now getting involved as well in this fight. It's all kicking off towards the front here, Jesse.
It sure is. This is a very dangerous place if you're Raphael Huell. Looking to the background, Badowski's trying to make this a 3-way affair and almost does. A little bit of contact by Nito. Nito's able to rejoin, and they continue racing, but that's bottled up this group. Meanwhile, that allowed Martin Lawrence and Leffe to get away from this field, and a little bit of a cork in the bottle now is Huell as they regain their composure, and it settles out between them and Raphael Huell and Nito. Behind them, though, this is what's going on. Christian Lindgren becomes the cork in the bottle. Badowski, Jordan Daly looking down to the inside of turn number 1. He's going to have him. Can he hold him off? No, he can't. A little bit of a touch, but nobody ends up going completely off of the racetrack, but they're still 3 wide. Martins, Boardman, and Forrest, all of them 3 wide. Andy Boardman down the inside looking to capitalize, and I think that's exactly what he's going to do. 4 wide, that's absolutely not going to work. Grim Lilith looking for a way through this action as well. The Lift King decides to do exactly that and lift a little bit, as that was very scary, but somehow they're all making it through. Miguel Martins in there, Gregor Forrest in there, and that somehow did not end in tears, though I will hold my tongue, as there's another corner coming up here in just a moment, and it's quite frightening indeed. But it looks like they've just about sorted that out without further incident. My goodness, Raphael Huel, though, is going to be fuming about that. Not only was caught offline, a little bit of contact to boot as well. Finds themselves down a position or so. Leffe, to their credit, set the quickest lap there on that opening lap and is running down our leader, Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence going to have to be careful here. I think I've just witnessed the first bump draft of the race. That's Ted Edwards into the back of Grim Lilith, pushing them through Miguel Martins.
Shall we do a drinking game? That's probably irresponsible, right?
It could be very irresponsible, and depending how close these guys are getting, we could have a lot of drinks on our hands by the time we hit the hour mark at about 56 minutes time, when it all comes to an end as the checkered flag drops. But everybody relatively now settled into their packs, like we tend to see during these one-make series. It becomes a bit of a train race as one driver tends to lead another. Mike Redford there with a very late lunge up the inside into the final turn. Sebastian Brunier there, very aware of the Porsche on his inside, not cutting off the apex, and Seb using the drive out of the corner to beat Redford across the line, and a little bit of toe ahead, more than likely going to be helping him. But in the background, Wilkinson will now come through on Redford towards turn one. He goes last of the late breakers. Wilkinson slots in between Brunier and Redford, and just ahead there, Svenček and Plata battling themselves out, and Sebastian Brunier has front row seats in the nearly on pace 668 car. A bit cautious into turn three. He will go, and just letting Svenček kind of work himself towards the back of the number 171. Man. It's getting very close, very dicey into turn 5 and 6, and Brunier with a poor run allows Wilkinson into the frame with Redford as well, and Jackson latching on to the back of these guys now. Cars in the background, 3 wide as we come Redford out onto the Mistral
Here goes
straight.
Jackson.
Here goes Redford. Jackson in the slipstream gets a bit of a slingshot as Redford moves over to the right to pick up the toe of Sebastian Brunier. So Jackson on the outside, no toe. In the background, I think we've got Ollie Mulder using the slipstream now of the car on the right-hand side.
There's a huge crash
behind Jackson. There
huge
is
crash getting on the Mistral straight.
Indeed.
Kevin Boss involved, several other cars. I think I saw the 71 also involved in that incident as well. We didn't quite see what happened, but there were more than 2 cars, 3 or 4 cars involved. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, 3 wide coming out onto the straight. RPMS over the curve into the side of Kevin Boss. Both drivers avoiding the wall, and more importantly avoiding the train coming behind. So it looked a little bit bad on the track map, but when we got down into it,
was 2 cars.
just a little bit tough.
It depicted that some of the others slowed down, and it showed them as a brief yellow. But yeah, only the 2 cars involved right there. What's happened here? This is the race for the lead, John.
Yeah, this is Johan Leffe on, of course, Martin Lawrence. This is the overtake that sealed the race lead briefly for Leffe. Pinches Lawrence all the way to the inside. Proper kind of elbows out touring car racing. Lawrence wanted to come across, and Leffe said, you've chosen your side, you will stick there, and let's go toe-to-toe into the Cygnus corner. And, of course, the much more momentum being able to carry through that turn. The wider you make it, the bigger slingshot you essentially get through. And Leffe there getting the move done and sealed, and Lawrence with no retaliation as they come into the latter half of the lap. But race change of the lead, Leffe out front, Lawrence in second, Raphael Huel 1.3 seconds down. With him brings Nito in the number 43, and Christian Lindgren just behind those guys as well in the number 48. So plenty of stuff going on at the moment towards the top end of the grid. Everybody's kind of beginning to thin out a little bit now. Raphael Huel in no man's land. Let's see, has Martin Lawrence got a retaliation back for Leffe? 288 on the speedometer there as they come up into the Cygnus corner, and Lawrence thinking twice about it. Maybe going to play the long game is Lawrence across the next 52 minutes of the race. Another race replay here down into the final corner. Looks like James Purchase having to take avoiding action. And that's Peter Varga, I think, involved there. Out to the left-hand side of the tyre wall they will go. That's big time loss for James Purchase in the number 322 Vulcan Racing entry. Meanwhile, Lawrence and Leffe back at each other again. through the final sector of the circuit they will go. This is through into turn 14. Lefe's going to have the inside line now, but if Lawrence could have held it around the outside, it would have given him the inside line into the final corner. And while these guys all squabble amongst themselves, Jesse, I said about it on the grid, choose your fights wisely, because the more Lefe and Lawrence scrap, the quicker it's bringing Raphael Huell into the mix. Already half a second down on the previous lap's gap, 0.8 of a second now, and that's going to draw Raphael Huell into the fight for the top three.
Gotta be careful. That kitty's got claws, and it's getting really close to that fight for the front. They had them down, Raphael Huell, that is, after the early fight in the race, and this squabble up at the top has brought Huell right back in it. That's not good news for anybody else. This two-way fight's about to become a three-way fight. And if they get to going, Christian Lindgren is not that far behind. The same gap that Huell was prior to Lefe and Lawrence fighting for this one singular lap. That is all it would take for them to squabble up front to bring more and more of these cars back in this fray. I will say a couple of major incidents that have played out. Obviously, we've shown you on replay, but considering the amount of cars, considering the nature of the racetrack and the nature of the race cars, no traction control, etc., and so forth, it has been a pretty good start to the race. Some action here. Going to be three wide up the middle. Nope. Oh, misjudged it. And that was additional contact. Now, that was a car off there, and that was already off there down to the inside. And I don't know if that was part of the Kevin Boss incident we saw earlier, and maybe that was the third car that I thought I saw. Could have been something else. Either way. That was the same. So I was not crazy after all, John. My eyes have not completely failed me. That was a three-car incident. One incident just happened a little bit further. It was somewhat related, as 3 into 1 almost certainly never goes.
Yeah, 3 into 1 certainly doesn't go. I mean, 2 into 1 certainly doesn't go in some aspects that we see in racing. But everybody at the front line of stern, Lefe leads, Lawrence and Huell just over the rear wing. We can see those guys behind, and certainly very quick drivers in their own right. We're only 10 minutes into this race. There's still 50 minutes on the clock left, as Lawrence is very confident, on the brakes. Very confident as he lunges towards the back of Lefe's car. It's that moment, isn't it, Jesse, when you kind of, you look at your braking point, you pick it, you slam on the brakes, you look in your mirror and you think, hang on a minute, have I braked too early? Because this guy is coming up very fast, and you almost do that racing driver kind of wince, don't you, where you brace for impact, and the impact just never comes. And both drivers, of course, surviving through the first sector. But it's this point here, coming out onto the Mistral Straight, you have to get a really good run to kind of break the toe of the car behind. And in the realm of ACC, you're looking at about a 0.6 second gap. So if Lawrence has managed to maintain the half a second gap or so, and Huell behind, they should both be benefiting a little bit of slipstream off the back of Lefe, and then Lawrence should be gifting some to Huell and essentially towing this kind of pack towards the front, towing them away from Lindgren and Nito and Daly, who are in hot pursuit. And again, we've got these little packs forming, these little trains forming, and just look at the track map on the right hand side. You kind of just see the Mistral Straight from kind of P1 down to about P30 something. Everybody's just compacted up so much, and it's the brilliance of one make racing, and this is what I love when Tim Ireland cooks up this kind of championship.
Yeah, it looks like the 5 freeway at about 5 p.m. on a Friday evening is what it looks like. Just bumper to bumper traffic, and everyone going exactly the speed limit, because nobody goes over the speed limit. Come on, I know John Dalton, very respectful, very responsible driver, never speeds. He's never done it in his life. Definitely doesn't have a record to prove otherwise. Martin Lawrence continuing to look to get by Lefe here. Raphael Huell sizing up the competition, back inside the top 3 and back in contact with the lead group. Christian Lindgren is being pulled in a little bit. That gap was 1.6 seconds. It's down to a second now. They're bringing Miguel Nito into this fight, as well as Jordan Daly. That could mean the entire top 6 being all back together again. And all it would take at this point, and it sounds silly, but it's true, if Martin Lawrence, for connection loss, if they make one move that doesn't get immediately resolved, that's going to bring Lindgren in, who is then going to bring Nito, who's going to bring Daly all into this fray, and it's going to be a 6-way fight for the lead to because this is the problem. This is kind of the point of asking the question on the grid that I did, John, of where would you want to be? What's the strat? What do you do? Because if you are at the front and you don't get away immediately, if there's no big accident, which there really wasn't, you're stuck like this, and now you've got to out-strategize some of these guys. When you take your pit stop, everyone has a required one. What you do on that pit stop, what your strategy was when you were sitting on the grid, all of that is going to determine who wins this race. Not always who's actually in the lead of this race. Martin Lawrence pulls to the outside, hoping to get the inside track up here in Senya, and does almost get there, but falls back in line, nothing doing, and will not be graced with a move. A lap ago, Leffe missed this corner ever so slightly. I think Martin Lawrence recognized that and looked to go down the inside. Didn't do it this time. The 199 clearly still in control of this race, and Lindgren and the rest continue to draw back up into this pack. Here they come, the black car. Christian Lindgren being into the picture.
Again, it's about choosing your fight, isn't it? If these guys continue to fight amongst each other, you know, pop themselves offline and really just make a nuisance for one another, that's going to bring Lindgren into the fray. Of course, Nito, we saw he was very quick during practice and quali in the early stages. So again, it's another driver that could get involved in the fight for the top three. Lindgren and Nito, that becomes a five-way fight for essentially 3 steps on the podium. So it's going to get really elbows out when they realize the clock has nearly hit 0 and they've run out of time to make the move. But as you said, Ted Edwards making a comeback to RCI Racing, another driver who took a brief hiatus throughout the M2 Cup. Didn't see him on the field all too much, but coming back just outside the top 10 alongside Bob Franken here and Mike Redford. Was that contact, or was that just an out-braking maneuver? Mulder getting it very wrong coming out of the final turn and really entering the pit lane as Redford comes through.
Redford just outbrakes himself
side by side, possibly. I can't see contact happening at the moment, and yeah, Redford just, I think Redford tried to psych out Mulder on the old last of the late breakers there, Jesse, and Mike Redford was the last of the late breakers and running down the escape road, very unfortunately.
Look here, Mike Redford, I'll give him an out. This track has hundreds of different layouts that they use. It could have very well been a different layout. Bump draft right there. Miguel Martins for DCC Motorsport into the back of Nicholas Nordquist right there. A flash of the lights, perhaps realizing that I'm just going to get stuck beside you and lose time. Just easier to push you up to the car in front, which is the Lift King, Grim Lilith, as they're all fighting for those spots. I call it co-opetition, John, and that's exactly what that is. It's cooperative competition, knowing that, yeah, I might get by you, I might not, I'm going to lose time either way. You're still quicker than the guy in front. I'm going to help you right now, but I'm going to try and get this spot a little bit later when it's a better position for me. So a little co-opetition, you love to see it. You see that in these races like this all of the time. A little less in GT racing where everybody's a little bit more all for themselves. But here, when you know you're stuck in groups, you know you're stuck in packs, and you're probably going to be racing the same couple of cars all race, you got to use that strategy. And that just goes back to it. What is your strategy? What was your game plan? I think Miguel Martins showed us a little bit of his right there. He's racing with his hands and his head here today.
Yeah, we did say that in the grid walkthrough. We said we might see bump drafting, and we've seen a few coming out already, and 5 stewards in the box next to us, not forgetting them casting their eye over all the antics, and not sure how they'll find bump drafting in the racing rules and the code of conduct. Time will tell, and we'll keep you updated on any of their decisions as the top 3 make their way on to the Mistral Straight for the 8th time so far. Raphael Gilsori very wide there. Definitely tried to pull the car across the right side of those cones, or should we say the left side, to avoid any implications with track limits warnings. And again, the gaps between the top 3 are enough to benefit from a little bit of slipstream, but it's not close enough to kind of draw themselves up and alongside as Johan Leffe breaks the toe very suddenly towards Cygnus, opens up the corner, uses a bit of entry curve versus Martin Lawrence, who stays clear off that curve. Both drivers exercising all of the track limits on corner exit, and Leffe a little bit cautious into turn 11. That's allowed Lawrence to get the snout up the inside, and Lawrence is going to be smelling blood now, isn't he? Every time into turn 11, Johan Leffe's made a little mistake here and there, and that's just going to open up the door for Lawrence and instill confidence that he can make a move stick through this long double right-hander, and everybody bunching up behind Les Stevenson at the moment. We've got Roskam, Kerrigan, Svenček and Plata. That's another 4-car kind of train forming towards the back end, towards the mid, sorry, should we say. Ted Edwards this time receiving the bump draft rather than giving. And just trying to work out who that is. That's Rob Franken in the 202. So RCI staff working together to try and progress their way towards the top 10. And Ted Edwards with a big slide out of the final turn. And Les Stevenson coming under fire from Roskam in the background. Of course, Kerrigan and Svenček now going side by side down the start-finish straight. Last of the late breakers into turn 1. Let's hope both drivers do decide to pick a braking point and take the correct line through the circuit. And Svenček hangs it around the outside of 1, gives him the inside for 2, but it does hamper the run ever so slightly down to 3. But Svenček's done just enough to fend off Kerrigan. But of course, we've got the Mistral straight coming, and Kerrigan's going to be tucking into the wake of the number 107 on this lap.
Yeah, that very close, very smart driving. I think Kerrigan realized that I'm not going to be able to make it all the way back, and the car goes sliding off. And that is the 908, I think it is, that we've just seen go off the racetrack. And it's not the 908. I don't know what car that was, but it looked like they slid off on their own accord as race for the lead continues, as Martin Lawrence continues to probe, and that's a little bit more than a probe as Christian Lindgren goes flying off of the racetrack. And was that Daly or Boardman? I couldn't quite catch the number of that bus, but either way, a hip check into Sinya, and that is not the way you want to make that pass. And that's why you've seen so many cars thus far back out, but it's gone right for Martin Lawrence. And the third time asking, Leffe has left the door open in 11, and that has allowed connection lost Martin Lawrence to go back to the point in this race. Saw it happen once, tried it a second time, didn't work. On the third time asking, Martin Lawrence gets it done, back in control, back in the lead of this race.
Yeah, Lawrence back to the front of the grid. Of course, Johan Leffe, though, not giving up, just behind in the number 199. And Rafael Huel is going to be smelling blood here. Miguel Nito.
That was Nito.
Yeah, Nito on Lindgren.
There's Daly.
There's Daly coming through the shot now, capitalizing up into P5. So Lindgren not only losing the place to Nito, but also Daly.
Oh, no, that's right. I'm sorry. I was completely confused in my head. Lindgren was in front of Nito, or Nito was in front of Lindgren, and they were racing each other. It was what was going on there. I had in my head that Daly was racing Lindgren, but it was the other way around. Nito was racing Lindgren there. They're all Porsches. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, absolutely. Really hard to keep track of who was where, and can change in the blink of an eye, as we've seen a few laps now with Lawrence and Leffe changing position. Of course, Lindgren getting shuffled down behind Nito and Daly just outside the top 5. Eagle-eyed viewers would have noticed pit window is open towards the top end of the screen. The countdown in the white box signifies when you can no longer come down the lane to make that mandatory stop stick. And the only thing we ask today is 1 litre of fuel to be added, leaving, of course, tyres and the rest of the fuel load essentially up to the drivers. There's many different strategies you can take. You can take all of your fuel at the start, drop the litre in, minimise your pit lane time, buy yourself back out on circuit, as we see Daly up the inside of Lindgren, trying to hang it around the outside. I think Lindgren's on a bit of a retaliation this time by trying to get back past Daly through the mid part of the circuit, and Daly's going to get the better run off the corner, but Lindgren parks it nicely on the exit. And I don't think I've seen a closer view of the back end of the 992. And
service that Porsche
certainly
that distance.
Getting a great
okay, all right. Jordan Daly is servicing that Porsche.
They say there's more than a service. That was certainly a bit of panel work on Christian Lindgren's car there, and Lindgren holding on to it nicely as driver in the background, Badowski, takes to the pit lane. First of your mandatory stoppers to come down the lane. And as I was saying, you can split the fuel load in half. So take the half in the beginning, make the car a little bit lighter, a little bit more competitive over those that take the full fuel load. But of course, that then has the trade-off being more stationary for longer in the pit lane. So again, you can lose crucial track position during that stop. And I think a lot of drivers, Jesse, tend to just stick with minimizing the pit lane time. They just like to drop the litre in, get going again. Tyres, I don't think, are going to be on too many people's radars again, sacrificing track position. There is no fixed refueling time here today, so it is just a case of how fast you can get that mandatory stop done, as Raphael Huell looking ever closer to Johan Leffe. Now Martin Lawrence has gone. You know, Leffe was a bit of a cork in the bottle maybe for this fight, as the suspicious Cat's car comes alongside. Lots of Cats side-eyeing the car of Leffe and pinching Raphael Huell all the way to the inside until the last moment. Ducks out to the left to try and open the corner. Huell is up the inside already, manages to keep it the correct side of the cones, but we know this corner can be tricky for Johan Leffe. Can he keep it on the black stuff? He can, just about. It's getting very close between the number 21 and the number 199 as they both slide off the corner. Towards the next one they will go. A flash of the lights from Huell. I'm not sure if that was a GG flash, Jesse, or a little bit of a frustration flash.
Correct.
That Johan Leffe managed to get back one on him after signals.
Yeah, if I was Raphael Huell, I'd be flashing like, come on, man, I was just all the way by you. Why are you fighting me this hard? Just get in line. I'll get you back up there. A little cooperation I was talking about earlier, as nearly Mike Redford goes for a wild spin and might still do, as he tries to get off of Levin side by side in the background now, trying to get by everybody. Here is the 100 of Byron. Byron now side by side with Wilkinson, and they're going to be able to get through. And now Byron up behind Redford. Redford somehow survives being sideways both on his own accord and potentially not on his own accord, and somehow keeps the position. Ted Edwards becomes the driver the furthest up to pit. He'll pit just outside of the top 10. Raphael Huell continuing to work on Leffe, probably a little bit frustrated right there, but in my opinion, that's just good, hard racing right there. Or as my favorite race car driver would say, that's just short track racing right there. That's good stuff. They didn't really get into each other. They both got loose. They're fighting for every millimeter of real estate. It doesn't get any better than that. And if you're Martin Lawrence, it definitely doesn't get better than that, because Huell behind him is not what Martin wants to have happen. He wants Leffe to hold him up. He wants Leffe to race Huell like he did, because that allows Martin Lawrence to get away and break away in some clean air. 2 seconds the gap, by far the biggest gap that we've had first to second place at any point in this race, and that's insane. We're almost halfway through, by the way, and we've not had more than a 2-second gap up until this point. So it's going Martin Lawrence's way right now. Raphael Huell, though, I wonder if maybe Huell just has a little extra in the tank, but we'll see. Got to get by Leffe first. Meanwhile, Christian Lindgren's back and wonders if Nito remembers him. Why doesn't he return his calls?
Absolutely so. And passing your eye down to the back end of the grid, we've got a pink on pink fight here. Sebastian Brunier and Callum Kerrigan, both of course in the very brightly colored machines that they are. Kerrigan just ahead there in the number 280, Sebastian Brunier in the 668, nearly on pace car. I'm not sure if this is a position kind of gaining or losing, but there's two certainly on the case there. Marco Podolski, you may remember him briefly there. Oh, a late decision to pit by Jordan Daly there. Saw the back end of Andy Bowman and thought, you know what, I'm coming down the lane. I'm having nothing
Stewie,
to
I
do
am so
with
happy.
this.
Stewie, I really want to see this again. This is about as, so he on the outside, he realized, oh, I want to pit here, get out of my way, get out of my way, get out of my way, and into the pit lane. Now, the real question is, was he down to pit lane speed doing that? Because even if you practiced your entry, you didn't practice an entry with a car to your inside, and with that obstruction of your vision, are you able to sight the line quick enough? We'll know in a minute if that 197 pops out with a stop and go 30. Keep an eye on the board. 16th place currently, and no, clean. He got in there even with the strife of being stuck on the outside. Well done.
A very well executed entry from Jordan Daly, and Sebastian Brunier sees a gap on the inside of Kerrigan and says, thank you very much, I will be having the inside line, see you later. We're off down the Mistral straight, and Kerrigan may be going to be a tactical move to try and net the slipstream away, and the lift king coming under pressure this time. Nicholas Nordquist to the right hand side he goes. Rob Franken in the background, front row seats to this fight, but I think Nordquist has done just enough they have to get the overlap on the lift king before they got to the end of the Mistral straight, and Rob Franken in the background could latch himself onto the back of this fight. Meanwhile, Roskam and Les Stevenson, this is what I spoke about earlier, working together. They've broken away from Svenchek and LaRue just behind. You may remember,
Here we go
it's
again.
about a 4 or 5 car train as Callum Kerrigan gets the favoured side of turn 11 this time, and Sebastian's going to have to go the long way around, but it does gift him the inside line for the next corner. He's still got the overlap in the number 668 car. He's going to park the car perfectly on the apex, make Kerrigan go the long way around it again. We'll give him the inside line for the penultimate corner, but that then becomes Kerrigan's inside line, and I think the 280's got just enough drive, but Sebastian up the inside, the last of the late breakers,
He's
managing
really
to get it up
wide.
the inside, parks it on the inside of the final turn, and I think he's done just about enough to fend off Callum Kerrigan for another lap. But in the background, of course, this brings Plata in the number 171 into the fight as Les Stevenson dives down the lane with Gregor Forst as well. 2 more pit stoppers to tick off your list.
My goodness, these two in the pink are just putting on a heck of a show here, and they're not done. Oh, and it's going to be calamity. The 208 goes hard into the wall. Callum Kerrigan doesn't get all the way to the tire pack and goes into the Armco. An ill-fated move down into turn number 1. 2 into 1 doesn't go. And this ends badly, and it wasn't contact, it just got loose. We've seen that from some other cars spinning off, but that is probably the most tragic, and that will end that. And only one pink car in that vicinity of the racetrack remains unscathed.
I think Kerrigan was a bit cautious coming into turn 1, maybe thinking he hadn't scrubbed off enough speed, tried to scrub off some more. The rear end, of course, all the weight throws forward. The rear end becomes a bit light as the lift kit gets pinched all the way to the concrete wall on the inside nearly by Nicholas Nordquist, who then opens up Cygnus around the outside. He will go, but Rob Franken's about to make it 3 wide. The lift king says, no, you don't. I'm covering off that inside line as we get to turn 11. Everybody relatively single file now, but this fight isn't over yet as we come towards the switchback nature of the last couple of corners. We saw it just 1 lap ago with Kerrigan and Brunier. This time it's the Lift King and Nicholas Nordquist scrabbling over
that's a illegal
a
overtake.
place. That's got to be an illegal overtake indeed. Across the white line through the cones goes
Can't take
Grim
this.
Lilith, but indeed, I'm
He
in
doesn't.
agreement with you.
Yeah, he
switches
doesn't,
back,
though, thank goodness.
sets himself up, and
Oh,
I
but
think
he can
Nicholas
now!
Nordquist
But he
runs
can
too
now!
deep. He does.
No, he's going
Here
to pit
comes-
lane. He's going to pit lane, I think. Yeah, he sure is.
Yeah,
Okay.
battle
That's
retired. Rob
Oh.
Franken released towards the back of Nicholas Nordquist now, and that was some fantastic racing once again, all the way through the final sector of the circuit as we see a hip and shoulder check here. That's Peter Varga and the number 2 having some contact there through turn 11. And towards the front, everybody's condensing up now. Leffe, the cork in the bottle, Huel behind, and Nito has now managed to claw onto the back. And Ibiza race around as well. Let's get a race replay here, Jesse.
Yeah, let's see. I think they're just going to be by themselves, and we're seeing some handling issues crop up here at the halfway point. And yeah, just loses it right there. Now, whether that was on the gas or on the brake, when you're in the middle of the corner, you can't really do too much of either, and it'll upset these cars. I was talking to some of the teams, and they had elected for something that may sound quite a bit strange to some of y'all at home. You may expect these cars to be trimmed out with no wing, but that's not the case at all. I heard a lot of teams say that they're on max wing just to get the car to grip and be more comfortable. And it doesn't really matter, because if you're in the draft, you top out at 288 kilometers down the Mistral anyway, so it does not matter what you do with the wing. It's just better to have max and go for it and have that extra downforce. But I think the tires certainly starting to come into play here. The grip's not necessarily where you would have found it 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward one with the Cup car, of course, all the weight over the rear wing. You then, over the rear axle, sorry. You then got the big rear wing pushing the tyres into the floor even more. So again, you dial in the max downforce, the weight of the engine over the back axle, and, you know, everybody using the right foot quite heavily here today. We've seen a lot of cars, you know, sliding on corner exit and spinning up those rear Pirellis. So it really does put wear typically on the rear tyres. The 992 is the same in the aspect that it eats rear tyres, just the weight over the back axle. Not a good combination for these kind of longer races. So, you know, drivers that haven't quite practiced these longer stints, maybe getting caught out, as you said, Jesse, and these seasoned veterans that have, you know, run this car quite a lot, know how it behaves over a stint, can really make the most of it. Raphael Guel having a look down into turn 3, got alongside of Leffe enough, and still Nito in the background. If I was Nito, you just got to wait for your moment, haven't you? You know Huel is going to stick it to Leffe at some point. And then when that happens, you've just really got to get yourself involved in the fight to try and capitalize on the two kind of squabbling ahead of you on that one. It's going to be a tricky ask to keep it clean between these three, but this is all essentially for a good haul of points in the early stages of this championship. And of course, the bottom step of the podium, as we see a stop-go 30 flash up for Nicholas Nordqvist. That can only be for speeding in the pit lane, Jesse, and the first victim of the season is claimed.
Yeah, it sure is. You only get that penalty from speeding in the pit lane. Looking down to the inside here, though, is Raphael Hill completely off Insignia. Is Lefay. Lefay is going to get back onto the racetrack. Nito smells blood in the water. Nito's down to the inside of Lefay. It's going to be contact here between these two. Roughed up again for the second time in as many corners. Johan Lefay and the 199 goes from second to fourth.
Yeah, very easily done, isn't it, in this nature of pack racing. And, you know, that turn 11 just not being too kind, trying to get it back onto the racing line. Unfortunately, Nito had already beaten him to it, and suddenly there was a number 43 Porsche in his way. So Lefay shuffled down 2 more positions, as you say. Raphael Huel now up into P2, Nito back into P3 on that one, and Johan Lefay towards the back end of this train now. And all the meanwhile, this has been kicking off. Martin Lawrence is just leaps and bounds away from this pack. 4.7 seconds at the last timing gate. Lawrence timed that very well, managed just to break away at the right point, and, you know, has managed to pull away from Lefay, which was a crucial point at the time of the pass, as Ted Edwards up onto the back of Kevin Boss. Kevin has to go the long way around of turn 11. It's a very sketchy corner, especially in the 992, trying to get the weight shifted forward to get that front axle to bite. It's so tricky through that long sweeping left. And
do you know what that was?
That was a clean pass.
Well, no, that's not rare, but what is rare is that was a vent manager on a vent manager. We talk a lot about steward on steward and sometimes comms on comms. That was a vent manager on a vent manager right there.
That is certainly a rarity. I don't think I can pinpoint any aspect of that happening on a Monday. So yeah, definitely a rare spot there as more drivers.
We got the shiny holographic foil in that one. I think is what we got on that. That was certainly worth the price of admission. But I think what happened was Boss realizing that they're on a little bit of a different strategy here. They're going to pit a little bit later. Didn't fight Ted Edwards too much, and I think it was understood from Edwards' point of view of, all right, I'm just going to go down to the inside, get this taken care of. And that's exactly what occurred. Jordan Daly, the leader of the cars that have pitted in 16th place currently, top 15. None of those drivers have pitted. The Just Gamers 197 had that risky pit stop. They may have lost a little bit of time, but it wasn't nearly enough to get Badowski and Grim Lilith into the fray. Grim 13 seconds behind Badowski. Badowski, of course, 1.5 seconds behind Jordan Daly. So we'll figure out eventually when they come into pit how much time he lost. And because if Lefay and Nito and Huel have been fighting as much as they have been, obviously that slows them down, John. How much time may Daly have made up by not being involved driving right behind that like he would have been?
Yeah, Daly certainly made some time up, hasn't he? But again, could be losing some time at the moment as he begins to latch onto the back of the kind of the first set of cars, or the last set of cars, sorry, that haven't pitted. Of course, Lundqvist and Wilkinson just ahead of him. And again, that's going to be a time loss for Daly if he doesn't swiftly dispatch of these two. They're in their own fight equally. You can't really, you know, shoulder barge them out of the way, essentially. You've got to get it through, but we'll get through cleanly as Ollie Mulder closing on to the back of Hubert Hauser, this time by down the Mistral Straight. Mulder towards the outside, Hauser on the inside. It's kind of one of those, no, after you, as Hauser parks the car on the apex. He's going to make Mulder go the long way around. Can he keep it the correct side of the cones? He does. Hauser sensibly gives space as well. Far too often, Jesse, we see drivers pushing themselves towards that outside curb, forgetting that there's a car trying to go around the outside. The car on the outside has to rejoin, and if you've blocked that kind of rejoining area, it always ends in calamity. We've seen it a few times here at Paul Ricard, but both drivers giving space, and it's hard and fair racing by this point. You know, Hauser could have played that one really dirty, squeeze Mulder all the way to the exit curve. You know, you've picked that side of the road, you're going to keep that side of the road. But Hauser jinking the steering to the right allows Mulder back on, and both drivers will survive around the last sector just about as Ollie Mulder picks up the exit curb, nearly losing the rear end of that Porsche. But again, has another lap to go by. Both drivers equally have pitted in this scenario, so it's not going to be one on pit lane. This is going to come down to sheer performance now over the last 23 minutes.
Well, you can see the right-hand side of the timing tower turning into a teenager's pimply face with all of the penalties popping up, and well, they certainly are a few of them to go over, starting, of course, with lap 1. It's continued to duke it out, and maybe the issue settled with that maneuver right there. Starting off with lap 1, turn 4, 5-second penalty for car 31. That's wheelie slow racing. Overtake with contact versus car 79. Some race here. But also on lap 1, turn 6, 5-second penalty for car 111, avoidable contact. Moderate damage and time loss led to the 5-second penalty. Lap 1, turn 15, a racing incident between cars 508, the 808, and the 322. The 322 deemed to have gone wide. The 508 and the 808 overtake and all try to merge at the same point of track. Unfortunate racing incident with no driver significantly having more fault than another. Lap 1, turn 11, 5-second penalty for car 43 for avoidable contact with car 21 and multiple overtakes off track. You don't see that one very often. Racing incident between car 45 and the 197 on lap 2, turn 3. The warning for car 44 versus the 999 and the 79. Racing incident between the 115 and the 8 on lap 2. Turn 10 incident between the 115 and the 8, also racing incident. Another racing incident between the 71 and the 111 on lap 3. 15-second time penalty for car 60 for avoidable contact and significant time loss in an incident with Kevin Voss. We saw that earlier, I'm quite sure. Lap 3, turn 7. Also lap 3, turn 7, 15-second penalty for car 75 for avoidable contact, heavy damage to car 71. So a huge penalty there. That's about the maximum that RCI will give, is a 15 these days. Racing incident between the 199 and the 404 on lap 3. Racing incident between the 999 and the 44. Both cars equally at fault in turn 10. Racing incident, minor contact between the 6 and the 28. Lap 3. No further action for a turn 13 lap 3 incident between the 322 and the 11. The 322 deemed to outbrake themselves, losing control. Loses out from the contact versus the 11. So the 22 outbrakes themselves and loses out from the contact made with the 11 car. Racing incident between the 115 and the 137 on lap 4. Racing incident, bump draft, minor contact between the 137 and the 62. It's double posted, which leads me to believe that it happened twice in the same exact corner, because stewards do not make a mistake like that. So that means that it went both ways there, both times. Racing incident. Racing incident between the 79 and the 75. Racing incident between the 137 and the 62. Racing incident between the 28 and the 808. John, you won't guess what the next one is.
Another racing incident?
You know it is. It's a racing incident between the 28 and the 808. It's a racing incident between the 8 and the 202. Racing incident between the 28 and the 808. Racing incident between the 43 and the 48. And finally, 5-second time penalty for car 62 for an overtake with contact versus car 137. That on lap 10. Racing incident between the 48 and the 197 on lap 11. I was curious how that was going to go. That was deemed minor contact. Also, this one, the 95 and the 6 on lap 12. That also was a minor contact racing incident. Warning for car 45 for avoidable contact on lap 13. Warning for car number 2 for avoidable contact on lap 14. Warning for car 808 for an overtake with contact. Position return was noted on lap 16 versus the 322. And just now, racing incident between the 199 and the 43. Anyone else lightheaded?
Slightly lightheaded, and I think the advice from McKenna McConnell was to take a drink of water before you read, and certainly needed with that long list of incidents from our live stewards. But
like usual, she's right.
She is right, always, never wrong. As usual, live stewards putting in a fantastic effort for us here tonight on Mondays, making sure every angle of the race is covered, and we thank each and every one of them for giving up their time for us, and it's a good factor of RCI, and it's something we pride ourselves on, I would say, is our live shielding team. So props to them for sorting all of that chaos out. And I'm glad sometimes, Jesse, that we're up here in the booth just casting over what is happening in front of our eyes rather than casting over multiple angles of the same incident. On your screens, Andy Boardman trying to go the long way around of turn 1, of course, becomes the inside of 2, although chopped off by Marco Badowski with a better run around the outside in the number 45. And on the left-hand side of your screen, covering up all the penalties, as Jordan Daly nearly fires one up the inside of Andy Boardman, is the pit stop time. So calculated roughly from pit in to pit out, and obviously the higher the time, the longer they've spent in the lane for whatever reason. So you can see your race leaders, top 3, just in the kind of 39-40 second region, which is what we expect for dropping in kind of 1 litre of fuel and getting going again. Nito in the number 43, the outlier, with a 45-second stop. So that's either going to be for damage repairs, possibly, Jesse, or maybe kind of the old half and half split. So trying to make the car lighter in the get-go and making it a bit lighter towards the end on that one if they can play it a bit riskier as they get towards the latter half on fuel. Miguel Martins, 47 seconds. That's another bit of an outlier. Everybody relatively the same as Daly and Boardman get very close. We see a flash of Stewie's browser here on the broadcast, and a picture-in-picture, which is getting very trippy at the moment there. And nobody really electing for the 1 minute stops for tyres, which, you know, we were kind of expecting. Gregor Force being the kind of slowest car down the lane, a 1 minute 6. So it kind of suggests maybe some tyres for the German driver. I think Les Stevenson as well, 1 minute 7, so he's elected to take a fresh set of Pirellis. But everybody, relatively speaking, Jesse, minimising their pit lane time and just dropping that 1 litre of fuel in and getting back out there and getting stuck in amongst their new race positions.
Yeah, I'm quite interested to see how far Jordan Daly can get back up in there. Would certainly like a top 5 as 8th place. I don't think top 5 is out of the question, considering Nito's only about a second to 2-3 seconds maybe up there the road, so I think that's very doable for them. I think there's a couple of other drivers that are looking on positions. The Lift King in 10th place could potentially get back into 9th place here, as well as these battles now become your fight to the finish, as a lot of those penalties have rearranged where everybody was running. Maybe you're running behind somebody you were in front of, and of course Tom Shipston has that 15-second penalty because of when they decided to pit that did not clear their penalty, so they will take that on as a time penalty at the very end of the race. For Martin Lawrence, you have to say, though, it's gone to plan. They lost the lead near the beginning of the race, but they didn't panic, they didn't overreact, and they were able to outlast Leffe and Raphael Huell by using that calm, cool head and kind of put a lot on it. Would Raphael Huell go up there and dominate? Did Martin Lawrence have anything for it? And Johan Leffe ended up being the one that led a large part of the early portion of this race. We start to think maybe Johan Leffe is going to be the one that comes out here and shocks us all, but sort of order is resumed. But I will say Leffe still has the quickest lap of the race, as looks like the Lift King Grim Lilith looking down to the inside of Miguel Martins in turn 11, and they're going to be side by side. This should, if they're not cleared, this should favor Miguel, but he gets a little bit loose, and that's going to hand the position to Grim. Grim goes incredibly wide. Here comes Miguel Martins back up the inside, looking for the switchback. The Lift King can't lift around the outside and has to lift his foot on the accelerator pedal for just a moment, and the status quo resumed. And back to my point, Martin Lawrence is out there running lap for lap quicker than Raphael Huell is to this point. Johan Leffe, who is now down in 3rd, back sort of where they started, but they still have the quickest lap, so they're going to get bonus points. John, we're not even a full race in, but can you make heads or tails of what this championship's going to look like? Because to me, it looks like it could be anybody's.
Yeah, I was going to say, you normally get a good picture, don't you? It's similar to, you know, the opening season of Formula One every year. You get a good guide of, you know, which team's going to do well, which team's going to be kind of, you know, just outside that magic region. But again, it's a clear indicator of the strong contenders from the start. Martin Lawrence certainly going to be one of those cards in pick. Raphael Kuhl, again, looking to make it the hat-trick off the back of Night Owl and the M2 Cup win this year. Johan Leffe, again, a bit of a dark horse. We've not seen him too much in the Monday region of RCI, so that's going to be a good driver to take a pick from. Christian Lindgren, we know he can win championships. Ginetta Cup, if I'm not mistaken, for Christian Lindgren was one of the titles he took. Nito, again, with Leffe, bit of a wild card. Don't know much about this driver, but again, up inside that top 5 and looking strong at the start of the race. So you've got 5 good drivers already at the top of this grid that can be quick, and even just outside that top 5, Badowski, we know he's a very quick driver in his own right. Boardman has had numerous titles with us as well. Jordan Daly, not forgetting him in the number 197. Miguel Martins in his own right can be very fast as well. Grim Lilith, very wild card pick, but again, on your screen at the moment, can't really get their arms out and get racing everybody if they're in the kind of magical region where they need to be. Latching currently onto the back of Miguel Martins, really making it hard for the number 62 driver. Svenček just outside the top 10. I mean, not looking too confident in round 1, but again, Ricard, not a circuit for everyone, as the Lift King sends it to the inside on the final turn. Up the inside he goes, and that will be position taken from Miguel Martins. A flash of the lights there, probably a GG flash of the lights, that you didn't even see that one coming as the retaliation comes back down into turn 1. The Lift King pinching to the inside, going to try and go defensive, but Miguel Martins already has the run. The last of the late breakers. Lift King around the outside. Miguel Martins having to kind of capitalize and make the most of the exit. There's a big wiggle in the background. I think it's a car that's a lap down, not involved in this fight anyway, but that's how easy it is to get loose off turn 2 there, and both drivers bounding over the curbs here, setting themselves up for a run down the Mistral Straight. But as I was saying, Jesse, plenty of drivers to contend with in this series, and equally on Wednesdays, plenty of drivers to contend with over there as well, as we go iRacing for the MX5 Cup. That's kicking off this Wednesday as we head to Circuito de Navarra, a track that promises plenty of close quarters racing and exciting battles. And the MX5 is, of course, known for its agility and competitive racing, as we see Gregor Forst getting involved. That's Chesty LaRue, I think, in the number 84
I think that is LaRue.
On that one. So again, still plenty of battles up and down the field. But again, back to the MX5 point on Wednesday. It's a great kind of car for entry level, all skill levels. Whether you're a kind of seasoned veteran here at RCI or just starting out your iRacing journey, we'd love to have you along for the MX5 Cup. It will be brought to you on RCI TV by yourself, Jesse Lee, Dan Van Zoofen alongside, and I think Ash Bibby making a return behind the cameras, as he's alluded to in the YouTube chat. So great to have some more familiar faces back on RCI TV. Get your name down for that one. All the content included in that championship, bar round 3, is included with the base level iRacing subscription. So if you are looking to dip your toe into the world of iRacing, that should be the place to do so. Get your name down for that one. That kicks off Wednesday. And this Saturday, we head stateside with the IMB 6-hour community series. We're returning for round 3 at the legendary Watkins Glen as we head into the midpoint of the championship. It's Sky Simsport holding a 27-point lead in the standings, with WOR x JSM Motorsport behind and nearly on pace, just 1 point away from that second place as well, rounding out the top 3. Of course, Watkins Glen fast and flowing layout will certainly test each team's endurance and strategy to the max, with, of course, the double stinting tyres that we do rule set in the 6-hour series, and equally always follows the community series. The following week will, of course, be the turn of the esports series. You can catch all their action on RCI TV. That's Saturday the 9th, as they mirror the calendar after the week. So plenty of stuff going on. Head on over to the website racerci.com and get involved anytime, day or night, in all of our events, and pre-qualify if needed on that one. Badowski and Nito, though, doing the old tango, the old switcheroo, the old up and under, drives Badowski off turn 11, can't get the drive off the corner. Nito managing to park it on the inside nicely for turn 12, fending off the number 45 driver. So Nito back up into P5, or remaining in P5, should I say, fending off Badowski just about. Meanwhile, Martins and Lilith, Jesse, still going at each other for this 9th place.
Yeah, there's no love lost here, but they're keeping it off of each other for the majority of it. They just can't, when one gets in front, the other one has a retaliatory strike immediately right back, and they can't get away. There's no time to pull away. They're somewhat equally matched. I mean, Grimm caught him and can't really get away from him, because every time he makes a pass, look at this, just going to be on another straight where there's a slipstream opportunity. But it would only take one major mistake from either of these two drivers, and it would be over. Bruno Teixeira, who we saw have a huge wiggle earlier and save it, hasn't done that here, and will slide off into the dirt. And oh my goodness, this is like trying to get turned left at an American stoplight. It's just hopeless. That's an American joke for anybody who drives on the right side of the road. You know, the correct side, John, in case you were wondering. But you just got to wait forever to make that left turn, and that's exactly what Bernardo Teixeira does in that case. But yeah, Wednesdays, iRacing, the Mazda Cup, going to be absolutely brilliant. It's going to be a lot of fun having Ash Bibby back, the shortest broadcast crew in the history. Hopefully, we're going to have Dan Van Zuffer there to help us even it out just a little bit. Marco Badowski here continuing to make their way, trying to make their way anyway, inside the top 5. Team Monkey Racing's number 45, sizing up Miguel Nito here, who's had a really good race, but would very dearly like to keep this top 5 here, and may or may not do it. And my goodness, just get a room, you two. Figure it out or something, I don't know. The Lift King and Miguel Martins trying very hard. It's going to be whoever takes that on the last lap, I reckon, is going to be the one who gets to keep this position, because there goes the Lift King again. Grim Lilith back up into 9th place, and my goodness, this is turning into a daytime soap opera.
I feel like they have got a room, Jesse, and we're just sat there just watching.
Oh no, we're the problem. No,
I think we need. I think we need to leave.
We're the weirdos.
Just let them. Yeah, I think it's us.
Yeah, I like it though.
As we see towards the front end of the grid, this time Christian Lindgren onto the back of Johan Leffe, and a position that the Swedish driver could take in these late dying stages. Bear in mind, Christian Lindgren hasn't had to fight all too much throughout this stint, and both drivers, speculating on the same set of tyres that they began the race on. So, Johan Leffe's Pirellis may be in a slightly worse condition than the tyres on the number 48 Sim Brothers entry. So keep your eye on that fight. That could be done and dusted in the next 6 minutes or so. Miguel Martins, a bit of a gap this time. There's a hip and shoulder check from the number 2 onto the number 75 of Alphonse Lundqvist. Again, Alphonse with the 15-second time penalty anyway. So a bit of a kind of overdrive, I would say, from the number 2 driver of Kusik here. But again, up into P33. Lundqvist will drop down, of course, 15 seconds after the checkered flag has dropped. Olivia Curtin, again, with that 5-second penalty, and Tom Shipston, 15 seconds to boot. So if you are new to watching ACC, normally the penalty times will be served during the pit stop. So that will be held an additional 5, 10, 15 seconds, and back out underway they will go. However, when that has already been cleared and taken, the additional time will be added on at the end of the race. So we'll see these results slightly shuffle as we get towards the checkered flag. Meanwhile, Marco Badowski still trying to find his way through Nito. Again, the number 43 driver putting up a great defense so far here. And it's going to have to be done down the Mistral Straight, if anywhere, because it's a bit tricky to get a move sized up through these slower kind of medium speed turns. But and we have seen some passes throughout the race so far, so never say never here as we get into the dying few laps of the race. Race leader currently heading down towards turn 3, so I'm going to say about 2 to 3 more laps, Jesse, on this one. Martin Lawrence, 8.7 seconds to the good this time on Raphael Huell. Huell equally as far away from Johan Leffe, 8.9 seconds on the last timing gate. Christian Lindgren, of course, filling the mirrors of the number 199. Going to make it hard for Leffe to break away to try and close that gap down anymore. I think the top 5 or so, bar any mistakes, be relatively set in stone, with the wild card being Badowski and Nito, the fight we're currently watching on your screen at the moment. And I've been looking at the Team Monkey racing car thinking, what does this remind me of, Jesse? And cast your mind back to the kind of European Le Mans Series days, the GT2 era, the Felbermayr racing cars. It's a very similar color scheme to those.
Yeah, that's true. It very much is. And while we have this moment here at the end of this race, big shout out to all the teams and drivers that have painted up their cars. Of course, a lot of in-sim painted up cars, which is completely fine. We love to see the creativity, but also the custom liveries on a lot of these cars, some of which we've not really seen before, is fantastic as well as Jordan Daly continues to work on Andy Boardman. There's going to be contact there, a little bit of a hip check, and that will send Boardman not off of the racetrack, but just ever so slightly wide. Another complete door-to-door slam there. Daly's patience running out ever so slightly, and he's going to take 7th place, at least for the time being. This is what set it up. In the middle of the track there is Boardman, and then yoink, Daly hits him with the yo-yo down the inside. There's going to be a little bit of a touch here, and I think you might be able to argue not enough room given to a car on the inside if you would argue that Daly had enough reason to be down the inside there, and then just a door slam there, but nothing egregious as the lights flash from Boardman, and Daly has either let Boardman through or Boardman's got back through. Either way, it doesn't matter. They go back to the way that they were, as Boardman was flashing his lights in displeasure of how he was overtaken, so they'll re-rack him with a couple of laps to go and get it done. Martin Lawrence has run away from Raphael Huell. That gap was a little less than 6 seconds post pit stop. It is 9 seconds with 2 laps of this race to go. 4 seconds to gap there. I think Martin Lawrence would have won this race regardless of any other outcome.
Yeah, I think the sheer pace and sheer consistency that Lawrence is putting in at the moment is more than enough to make that kind of work. I think Leffe was just a bit of a cork in the bottle for Lawrence and just held him up essentially for a few minutes, should we say, or 10 minutes or so, as we watched those two duke it out. But it was a hard move from Leffe to get past, and Lawrence really didn't want to make it make it all too easy for him either. So again, good fights between those two, and Christian Lindgren goes to the outside of Cygnus. Can he get round the outside? It's going to be a hard ask at this late stage on these warm Pirellis. You can already see the 992 moving under Christian Lindgren as he loads up those left side Pirellis down into the tricky corner that we know is so hard. Christian Lindgren with a big slide as he tries to shoehorn open the door on Leffe. Both drivers massive slides as they come off the corner, and this will go one more lap between these two, but you can already see how much they're fighting riding on board here. Christian Lindgren, ignore the mirror, is really off-putting in ACC, but lots of opposite lock in the mid corner, and then a big armful of opposite lock as they came off the turn. The turn kind of crests and rises as you come out of it almost. It's a very tricky corner to try and judge, but you can already see Christian Lindgren's car working underneath him a lot now. Those Pirellis have been overheated with those big slides. It's really hard to drop temperature out of these tires, but once you drive over that kind of ideal temperature, it's pretty hard to then get them back down to where they need to be. It does take a few corners of gentle driving before they kind of switch back on again, essentially, and that can be the kind of undoing in a lot of fights sometimes. Callum Kerrigan and Kevin Boss still trying to get at each other. Meanwhile, Sebastien Brunier and Chesty LaRue equally still with a fight on their hands. Tom Shipston behind, 15 seconds penalty, remember, so I don't think Tom Shipston's going to be doing all too much to try and get past on this final lap as Martin Lawrence navigates down Mistral Straight for the final time. The white flag is out, so this will be the last lap as your race leader crosses the line in a few moments time. So any battles that aren't tied up yet, Jesse, it's going to be getting a little bit desperate in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's gonna be like closing time 2 a.m. at the bars around where I live. It's gonna get real desperate out here real quick. I don't know that, John, because but I'm told that is what happens down there. But here it's Christian Lindgren talking about some of that desperation, trying to get around Leffe and try and make up a podium spot here and make something out of the soup that has been accumulating this entire day for Leffe. This is a point of pride to sit on the podium for this race, and this is going to be contact here. They're both going to slide. Christian Lindgren is going to somehow be able to take that car up into 3rd place. Now, will Leffe be as accommodating? Well, certainly got in there a little bit too hard, and that will reset them, sort of, so to speak. Christian Lindgren is going to keep the spot, but up here at the front end of the field, it is all Martin Lawrence as he's got it done today, and he's won another one for Connection Lost Racing. Christian Lindgren is going to come to the flag with P3. Raphael Huell gets credit for P2. The championship well and truly on. LaFay in fourth. Nito is going to make your top five as Badowski won't be able to get there. Boardman in front of Daly. That's how they'll finish. Miguel Martins, the lift king himself, Grim Lilith, is your top 10.
Fantastic driving from everybody on the field as we catch a race replay. It's not all done yet. This is Shipston somehow getting past LaRue and Sebastian Brunier at some point. Brunier sees a gap up the inside of LaRue, tries to make it stick. Unfortunately, gets pinched down to the curb, unsettles the car, and lots of wrestling of the steering wheel there. The Lift King and Miguel Martins, GG's in the chat. For those guys, they kept us entertained for a good few laps. Tom Shipston finishes ahead of LaRue and Brunier. Mike Redford beats Les Stevenson to the line, and it's not all done yet. Kevin Boss and Callum Kerrigan, this time event manager on commentator, shall we say, on the RCI roster. And Kevin Boss now fending off the number 280 behind in his mirrors. Olivier Curtin just out of the back of shot, 5-second penalty to his name. So again, if he gets past, hopefully that won't be too detrimental. He'll shuffle back down if these two do collide. So Kerrigan not going to be close enough, I don't think, through these last couple of turns. And Kevin Boss in the number 31 Wheelie Slow Racing team has done just enough to fend off the number 280. A flash of the lights there, a GG weave from both drivers on that one. I think all is fair and done. Olivier Curtin will be the last car to cross the line, I believe, although Novak,
oh no,
Thomas Novak running out of fuel. It's like the Disney Cars movie all over again.
Didn't do their pit stop either.
Martin Lawrence pushing Novak towards the line, didn't do his pit stop, well spotted. So the 1 litre of fuel didn't go in. There should have been enough fuel in that car to make it to the end on the hour, but just running out of fuel. Stu telling us he's pitted 3 times, so maybe not within that pit window for Thomas Novak in the number 71. Stu telling us in our ears that he has come down the lane multiple times to what sounds like roughly the pit stop timer we're expecting. So a bit strange there, maybe not being able to do it in towards the pit window, but great camaraderie shown from Martin Lawrence. Thomas Novak you shall go to the checkered flag, and Martin Lawrence's safety rating will take a plummeting within the realm of the ACC rating system, and trying to go down the lane as Novak won't actually make the checkered flag. Very unfortunate indeed, but I'm sure will still be counted on the board. And that is how the race has finished today. Down the left-hand side of your screen is how they briefly stack. And here is your final race results, of course, pending any further post-race steward inquiries and reports. But it was Martin Lawrence at the top of the field. A very commanding drive once they got through Johan Leffe. And that's 10.7 seconds to the good over Raphael Huell, who got a little bit stuck behind Johan Leffe and just couldn't find their way through throughout the race. Very much struggled in the midpoint, but did manage to do it in the end. Christian Lindgren will come through in third after the elbows out move we saw in the dying stages. Johan Leffe will take the fastest lap of the race, so some bonus points there. Nito, Badowski, Boardman, Daly, Martins, and the Lift King round out your top 10. Svenchek, Roskam, Franken, Forst, Edwards, LaRue, Brunio, Plata, Redford, and Stevenson round out your top 20. And then we've got Shipston, Byron, Carlson, Lundqvist, Wilkinson, Varga, Holder, Jackson, Boss, and Kerrigan rounding out the top 30. And then Curtin, Kusik, Purchase, Foster, Lundqvist, Hauser, Racer, Teixeira, Novak, who we saw at the end there trying to make it to the finish. Lopez will be the last car that finished overall. Nicholas Nordquist, your only retiree from today with that stop-go 30, deemed it too costly to continue and try and make any positions back. Of course, top 30 taking points away, and if you shuffle yourself down to the back end of the grid with a stop-go 30, that's going to be a very big ask to make up by the time the hour is up. 45 drivers signed up on the website, 41 drivers made tonight's server, and 40 drivers made the checkered flag. Jesse, that is some sheer big numbers from a Monday night event.
Well, I think if one thing that we can take from today's race is that Martin Lawrence has shown that he's going to show up and he's going to try and win this championship. The same with Raphael Huell. We got new players, LaFay in the mix as well. Lindgren came on strong at the end. And if there's one thing that we learned today is that we've learned absolutely nothing. The players are going to play. You said it from the jump, partner, that the people at the top are going to vie for these positions and they're going to try and put themselves in a position to win another championship. You've got Raphael Huell is trying to basically become the 2024 RCI champion by winning the most different championships that you possibly can do. Martin Lawrence has come back on the scene. He's been incredible in his return, and he doesn't even need a Bentley to do it, apparently. The Porsche Cup car good enough for him. We've got new faces like LaFay and Nito up there in the front of the field who are putting on a show. Your guess is absolutely as good as mine. It's going to be a very entertaining season if this keeps up. Some 40 cars. Where are we going next week?
Yeah, next week we of course head to the Hungaroring. We're here for the next 5 weeks from the get-go, every Monday, starting at roughly about the same time, 7:40 UK time. We head to Hungaroring next week, then take to Barcelona on November 11th. Imola will play host to us on November 18th. Bathurst, we're going down under for November 25th. That's going to be around. I'm very excited to see the 992 Cup cars head around there before rounding out in South Africa in December 2nd at Kyalami. So plenty of variation on the circuits. We've got some kind of compact circuits, a few open circuits, and some very challenging circuits to boot as well. It's been a fantastic evening hosting the first round of the Porsche Cup Season 5 we're up to now. That's some good numbers there. I mean, Night Owl season 18, 19 is probably the highest scoring championship so far that we host, but 5 seasons of Porsche Cup, it proves to be a successful format. Of course, coming up this week on RCI TV, we've got iRacing on Wednesday as Jesse Lee, Dan Van Zoofen, and Ash Bibby take you through the opening round of the MX5 Cup. Again, a car that provides some fantastic close racing. So if you are looking to dip your toe into the realm of iRacing and league racing with us here at RCI, then Wednesday is the day for you. All content in the calendar, bar round 3, is completely free with a standard iRacing subscription. So no excuses to not get involved in that one. And again, this Saturday, the IMB 6-hour community series returns for round 3 at Watkins Glen. Unfortunately, no broadcast on RCI TV for that one. However, the following Saturday, when the esports leg take to Watkins Glen, we'll of course bring you all the action from that one. A quick message, of course, from our partners as well. They've been revolving around in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. AK Esports, a top provider for premium esports services and equipment, including hosting our servers here at RCI. Check them out down below if you believe they can help you. Go Setups, again, needs no introduction. I say this every time. I think everybody knows who they are. And I think some drivers tonight using their setups for the 992 as well, featuring not only ACC setups, but also standard Assetto Corsa. And I'm sure they'll head over to Assetto Corsa Evo when that eventually hits our screens in January next year. You can be sure the kind of setup you choose has extensive hours behind it from their roster of esports drivers. And of course, a new partner for us here in 2024, Moser Racing, who we are thrilled to partner with, a leader in high quality sim racing gear, from precision engineered steering wheels to durable pedals and advanced wheelbases. Moser Racing has everything you need to boost your racing experience. And with the holiday season coming up, if you are buying any gifts, be sure to use our affiliate link, whether it be a gift for yourself or for a loved one. And joining us in the box at the moment, Martin Lawrence, your round 1 winner from tonight. Martin, first of all, congratulations on the win. It looked pretty hard out there, although starting on the front row of the grid, Johan Leffe really made it tricky for you in the early stages of that race.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And yes, you're right. The beginning was strange because Johan was pushing like crazy, which it was for me was a sort of a F1 race. Don't rip off the tires or you're gonna struggle. So I was a bit confused. I thought he's going 50-50 with the tires. Gonna change. That wasn't the thing. So he was just pushing so hard from the beginning. I was driving behind him. and I enjoyed it because I did my personal best on the second to last lap. I saved my tires pretty well. So
So
yeah,
good.
yeah, I planned it not to scribble the tires and push on the end if necessary. So that paid off for once.
So maybe some good advice from anybody listening back or currently tuning in to the interview there. Don't use all your tires up in the early stages. Myself and Jesse touched on it earlier. Round one, you can kind of really tell who the competitors are for the rest of the season. Of course, you're off to a good start for a round one points all. Anybody in the grid that you're feeling is a bit of a contention for the title alongside yourself?
Everyone is. It's a game of everyone. Depends on the track and how do people feel it. Because for example, I don't like particularly Power Ricard, but I am very fast on the track for some reason. So that's one. Then it's Hungaroring. I'm not sure about that because I never finished the Hungaroring with fresh tires. Even in the GT3, in the Porsche Cup, in the GT4, I always burn the tires. So yeah, that's it. Barcelona, I have a personal in my heart. There is a space, perfect spot for that track, and it will be burning in hell in my heart. I just don't like it that much. So so yeah, it's just everyone's game basically. I think because all around as I was watching the data behind me, no one was really pushing away from each other. It really was up most of it how quickly the people scribbled the tires. Setup work can help. I wasn't running my setup. I was helped by our famous colleague, crew chief, Seb Brunier. Just he sent me something, and it was a dream to drive on. So perfect. So it's like 90% of him, and I just drive. So that's the rest of the 10%. Nothing else. Anyone else could drive it. But yeah, so the setup can help. There is not too many things to change, but he just nailed it spot on with the in terms of durability of the tires. So perfect.
Yeah, big shout out to Sebastian, a bit of a wizard in the setup world amongst the RCI members for sure. Jesse, anything you've got for Martin before we let him head off?
Yeah, Martin, first of all, congratulations on the win. You had your own cheering section in chat today. Felipe Brecha showed up, and Bart Macha was in there
Oh, that's
cheering
not so.
on Martin Lawrence, and they always are. Of course, I got a question for you specifically. We know that you're lethal in the Bentley. You're one of the best, if not the best, Bentley drivers in ACC.
No, definitely not the best.
Well, that's what I think. But I got a question for you. You're also really adept at racing this Porsche Cup car. Why is that? Why do you think it is?
Uh, I I don't know. Since the early age, I basically whatever I was driving, I adapted extremely quickly. I can be like swapping from car to car, and I don't have any issues with it. Was the go-kart. I was driving like the slow endurance 4-stroke, and then after 20 minutes, I jumped into the shifter, and it was still the same. Like there wasn't really a difference in the driving in terms of how fast was I. So I think I brought that from real life to the sim racing. Not always, not perfect, but as I said, Seb did amazing job. So I tried my setup in the beginning of the practice, and that wouldn't be really so funny. Be funny only in a way that I would be without the tires.
Well, there
So
you have it.
yeah.
Martin Lawrence wins round number 1 of the Porsche Cup Championship. See him back that normally invites issues, it invites contact and drive-through penalties. Not a ton of mistakes. It was just some good hard racing for the most part. Some deserving winners and podium getters out there in the field today. And here in the booth, partner, we're just none the wiser. We're going to have to come back next week and do it all over again, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Martin Lawrence alluded to there, some circuits not always gelling well with some drivers. So, this could have been the kind of drop round, should we say, in kind of air quotations for some of the drivers. Again, I'm not a fan of Paul Ricard. It's one of my kind of least favorite circuits. And unlike Martin Lawrence, I don't have pace here. So, that's something to consider. Of course, next week we head to the Hungaroring. Could flip on its head again. It's not really a well used track in ACC. I don't see it in a lot of calendars cropping up, certainly in the realm of endurance as well. Don't really host many endurance races at the Hungaroring either. So we'll have to see who is well versed. Keep an eye on the practice and the movers and the shakers as we head through that next week. And by the time we head out of Hungary, it could all be flipped on its head once again. So you just have to join us here on RCI TV for all of that one. As we kept saying, MX5 Cup kicking off iRacing this week on Wednesday. That's going to be brought to you by Ash Bibby, Jesse Lee, and Dan Van Zoofen on RCI TV. IMB 6-hour community series on Saturday. The following week, of course, is the esports realm. The esports will be streamed on RCI TV as well. So plenty of action coming up on your screens. Remember to hit that subscribe button. Get a nice little notification in your subscription box when we're about to go, when we're planning to go live, and you can of course hit the remind button so you don't miss a thing. We're also live over on Twitch, dual streaming Twitch and YouTube, so head on over there, drop us a follow, would be much appreciated as well. And a big thank you to you guys at home for joining us, whether you've joined us from the beginning, you've been lurking, you're watching back. I know a lot of drivers do watch back. We appreciate each and every one of you. And thank you for making RCI possible in the outfit that it is. Of course, AC Evo coming up next year. Lots of exciting things on the sim racing horizon. So thank you very much for joining us on this journey. And a big thank you to our partners, of course, AK Esports, Go Setups, and Moser Racing. Find all their stuff down below in the description. But it is that time to say goodbye. So from myself, John Dalton, from Jesse Lee, alongside me, or Stewie, bringing you all the pictures from behind the cameras, and not forgetting our live stewards. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on RCI TV. We'll see you on Wednesday when we head to Navarra for MX5 action in iRacing. Take care.